Today I'm driving in the Mercedes EQE and watching our video about the Mercedes EQE because, yeah, that's possible now. It's really interesting. It's a very new feature here. You can watch YouTube online while driving as a passenger with these Bluetooth headphones here, also here Mercedes headphones. And it depends on where it is allowed. For example, in the US, it depends really on the state. For example, in California it's allowed, and when you cross the border, there needs to be like this geo-fencing that it then shuts down when you're in Nevada. Very interesting, definitely. But of course, I want to tell you more about today also how it is to drive in the Mercedes EQE. The first time in the EQE, the smaller EQS, so to speak. So far we've driven the EQS, now the first ride along in the EQE. And we are joined here by the head of the EQE project, Jörg Miska. So thank you so much for taking us on the ride. What was actually the goal? We know the EQS. Did you want to have the EQE like similar to the EQS? So you say like, oh, you drive like a smaller EQS version or something, or did you have like, oh, we want to make it completely different?
Well, first of all, the EQ is a family. It's a family of cars, and it's going to be a full lineup of cars, limousines and SUVs. And therefore, of course, there has to be some familiarity within that family for those cars, but also every product out of this family should have its individuality. And as said, the EQS is comparable to S-Class sedan, and the EQE is more the new business limousine. And it also has a lot of attributes that we kind of know from the CLS. So we like to compare it to the CLS as well as the E-Class itself.
So it's more supposed to be an electric CLS than an electric E-Class?
Well, I wouldn't go that far that we would really differentiate those too much, but it's the limousine that you would use as a self-driver rather than the ultimate luxury limousine. And therefore, we have positioned it more as a self-driving car, so for the driver, made for the driver, but also with lots of room in the second row as a business limousine.
Yeah, here by the way, the screen turns off when the driver is looking like 5 seconds in that direction, also for safety reasons, also a very interesting feature. So everything is set that the driver is not distracted by the screen there. And
yeah.
But I mean, the driver has a lot of distraction here already, right?
Exactly, but let's say entertainment is not allowed while driving, and I think that's a very good ruling in this case. So we have a setup with a camera that is observing where I'm looking at with my eyes. So it even differentiates whether I'm looking at your screen or into the rear view mirror, which I obviously should do.
But there will, at some point also be some entertainment maybe in that screen when there's full self-driving.
Sure.
We know that the EQS is already able to drive on the motorway up to 60 kilometers an hour, in this level 3 driving mode. Will this also be possible with the EQE?
No, sorry, this is a feature we will not have in the EQE, this capability for highly automated driving. This is something we have positioned in the luxury segment as our entry for this feature. So this for now is not available in the EQE.
I was curious, you started basically like with this more CLS comparison. Why would you rather see this closer to the CLS than to the E-Class?
It has a couple of features that we already introduced to the market with the CLS. For example, the doors. We have the doors without the frame for the windows, for example. That's this kind of 4-door coupe attribute that also the EQE has. And also the slope of the roof and a lot of, let's say, visual attributes that make it more comparable to a CLS rather than an E-Class as a let's say, the sedan, the classic sedan.
Oh, okay. So we have normal steel springs as base here.
Yes.
And then optional air suspension. This vehicle here is equipped with that air suspension.
Yes.
So all these, let's say, hard facts technology-wise, like suspension, also the main chassis maybe, also the battery, is that all somewhat similar to the EQS?
The drivetrain is very comparable because it's made out of this family approach. So the battery that we use in this car is the same one that we have in the EQS, in the 350. The electric motors, the ETUs, they are the same. So all the driveline configuration is very comparable between the two cars. The
91 kilowatt hours for that
Yes.
small
Yes.
battery here, and this is the EQS. Sorry,
EQE
the EQE
350
350.
plus.
That means rear-wheel drive.
Yes, rear-wheel drive,
Yeah.
250 kilowatts.
And you can, when the traffic light jumps to green, you can maybe show us the
Sure.
acceleration. I think it's supposed to be like something 6 seconds
Yes.
to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour.
We can only do 0 to 50 here, obviously. But
Yeah. I mean, when it would be 0 to 50 miles, then it would be
Yes.
more fun, right? But this to 50 kilometers. But I mean, like this first sprint, like the first 50 kilometers, is like the most.
Yes, most
explosive
interesting
one anyway.
as all electric
The whole
cars.
tight.
The big benefit of the electric motor is having full torque from starting with the 0 RPM. So, and that's always impressive.
This one will also be available with all-wheel drive, with
Yes.
the probably also like EQE 450 or something. Will this one here with the rear-wheel drive only be more efficient?
Yes, that's why we call it the 350 Plus. We kind of attributed the plus to the vehicle in the lineup that has the highest range. And
Okay. I thought Plus stands for the all-wheel drive, maybe.
No,
But
no.
that's like like a star or something. Like, hey,
Exactly.
that's the range king.
exactly.
Interesting. Okay. Because I recently was driving the EQS 450 Plus.
Oh, we leave some room. We go.
Plop, that's it already.
There we are. So you were asking about the body structure of the vehicles and whether they are comparable.
Yeah.
From a design standpoint, the layout, the architecture are very comparable. In terms of the material mix we are employing in those two cars, they differentiate, or we differentiated them because the EQS is built, we just passed here, factory 56. It's built together with the S-Class, the conventional S-Class, and we have a higher share of aluminum in that body structure. So
Okay.
that's a little different mix. The EQE is built in Bremen and in future also in China. And those are built together with the C-Class, which has a higher share of steel in the body structure. So in order to fit in those production setups, we had to kind of integrate more steel into the structure of the EQE. So in terms of weight, they are closer to each other than you would think by size.
And is the steel, like more steel chassis here, does it have more flex? Is it less stiff?
No. In terms of the, let's say, dynamic behavior of the cars, we design them to whatever material mix we employ. They all have to fulfill the same functionality, whether it's like, say, the torsional stiffness or safety purposes and all that. So that's independent of the material mix. You just have to choose a different approach to do it.
So the wheelbase here is around 9 centimeters or like 3.5 inches shorter than in the EQS.
Yes.
And double than that is, the length difference,
Yes.
like 20 centimeters.
Yes.
I think
And
like
that's
8
the-
inches, 9 inches difference in the length.
That's the visual appearance you also
yeah,
have. We have
yeah.
shorter overhangs on this car than on the EQS. That makes it look a little more compact.
And I would say, I really feel that, I've just been driving the EQS actually, just drove it yesterday, and it is a notable feeling. So this one indeed, when you just compare the length, right, it more feels like an E-Class or CLS in length, and you also feel that shorter wheelbase. When you like maybe do some right and
Yeah.
left turning, then
We can do some turns later
Yeah.
on, and obviously the rear steering. We also have the rear steering, 4.5 degrees or 10 degrees in this car. Together with a shorter wheelbase, shorter overhangs, the turning radius on this car is really phenomenal, and we can see that later. And as you said, you drove the EQS. The electric vehicles in general, due to the battery, low center of gravity, long wheelbases, they are almost stoic in going continuously straight. But the challenge is to also make them agile and make them turn nice and be maneuverable. And that's what we achieve with the rear axle steering.
We had the 21-inch wheels here on this
Yes.
one here as well, and so I have the same setup in the EQS at the moment, 21-inch and air suspension. This one also equipped with the optional air suspension. And comfort-wise, did you have like a little stiffer setup here with the EQE, or is it more or less the same setup with the EQS?
The setup is very comparable. As I said, the weight doesn't differ too much.
Yeah.
The wheel diameters are not too far apart from each other. So the setup is, I would say, really comparable. And
Yeah,
you
I
can,
would
especially
also
with
say
the
so, yeah.
with the spring setup, you can adjust it to your taste.
I mean, with the 21-inch wheels, of course, when we go over some potholes or something, you do feel it. If you want more
Yes.
comfort, stay with smaller wheels.
We have 19-inch wheels as an entry position. So once you start with those, you have a little more air and rubber.
But overall, I would say it's very good driving comfort, and also noise insulation wise, I feel it's really silent.
Yes.
So I wouldn't say like, oh, this is only the EQE and then it's louder than the EQS. So I mean, there is this raw chassis foam applied to the EQS, but they do with the S-Class. That's probably a planned thing.
We
I
do
guess-
have that here as well.
Do they
yes,
do that in Bremen
yes,
as well? Oh, interesting.
Yes. And again, due to the different body structure, it's a different application, but that's also something we employ here.
Yeah, but I mean that's really good. So they don't have like so much compromise, and yeah, of course this will here start at a way lower price than the EQS, like the E-Class
Exactly.
to the S-Class. You
Yeah.
know, that makes it I was a little bit disappointed that it didn't have like the fastback opening, that there was like this closed trunk, so to speak,
Mhm.
because that would have been also that you also like with the EQS have some kind of a mixed estate practicability
Yeah.
or something. But was it something that you say, yeah, that was needed, that we have more headroom in the rear?
Exactly. That
Okay.
was the reasoning behind that. And
Okay.
same as with the CLS. If you want to go for, let's say, a highly aerodynamic and also coupe-like silhouette of the car, you have to slope the roof down somewhat. And if you still want to have ample headroom in the rear seats, you somehow have to protect that area where you would then have the hinges for your larger rear door. So that's why we chose here to go for a conventional setup, and therefore have maximized the headroom, and also for the accessibility of the trunk, it's beneficial to do it conventionally.
About the recuperation, so there's a maximum recuperation, I think 260 kilowatts
Yes.
maximum, so you can basically charge your car faster by braking than at a charging station.
Sure. But that's our pretty much an intense
Yeah.
braking. Yeah?
When you go downhill all the time.
That's not something you sustain for a very long
Start
period
at
of
Pikes
time.
Peak and then go downhill all the time, for example.
For example, across the Brenner.
At the moment you're at normal recuperation. It means when you lift your foot off the throttle, there's
we're
little
more or less
recuperation.
almost sailing. At
And
the
then you
moment,
can adjust the shifting
Yeah.
pedals. No
now
recuperation.
we are
right
no
press,
cooperation.
and left one you can go to the
Yes.
strong. Yeah.
I'm not doing anything else. Just
Then it's
with the
more or less
pedals.
one pedal driving. But the thing is, I realized also in the EQS, it's not a one pedal driving in a way of that the car comes to a standstill, right?
Yes.
It doesn't do it.
Well, it's the almost sensor. We will probably run at a red light
Yeah.
soon, where we can demonstrate that feature there.
But I mean, what was the reasoning behind that? Because when people are used to one pedal driving, they normally have the experience that the car also comes to a standstill.
Well, the question is, do you want to give the impression that the car is, while in driving mode and at rest, that it would be safe to, for example, leave the car, for example. So you would always would want the driver to be on the brakes or to disengage the driving mode. So for example, we have the feature that the hill hold features and all that. That would be something that would be somewhat in the logical conflict to that.
Okay. Yeah.
I see it's braking pretty hard
Yeah,
now,
it's
huh?
strong, but it won't come. Yeah, we were rolling now. Yeah.
Gotta
That's
go
the
now.
thing. So
Someone behind
I
us.
would say like to
You
make
would
a
prefer
real one. But there's one exception when you go to this intelligent recuperation mode. So it's like press and holding one of the pedals. Then when you have like when you're stuck in traffic or something, then the car does come to a still because it sees, hey, there's
The one ahead of us is stopping as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it would commence again as well. It would-
so that's maybe something. So I really like this intelligent recuperation mode because it rolls when there's no one in front of you, and it stops, or it has harder recuperation when there is someone in front of you. But the thing is, what I experience also, it's always being resetted. You know, can't you make it adjustable? You say like, hey, I'm a customer who wants to have the intelligent recuperation all the time, or I want to have strong recuperation all the time.
Yeah.
That I shut down the car, start up again, and it's in the very same mode.
Well, as the cars have so many setups today, the question whether you stay in last mode, that's kind of the technical term we use for that discussion, or whether you always go to the presetting. And that's a difficult situation or a difficult question, because you have the potential that many different people use a car. And not everyone might be accustomed to these very specific setups that you chose. And also there are some implications in terms of rulings that you kind of, for example, when it comes to the driving modes, you have to have the mode that gives you the best benefit in terms of range, for example. You can't select a different mode that's, let's say, worse in the performance with that respect, and leave it in that mode forever, for example.
So yeah, I mean, from a rental car perspective, that makes sense. But from a like owner, customer, single user experience, I mean, would be better to have the same. I mean, but you could.
But we
to
can't
do like an
safeguard
option,
that, right?
But you could like an option in the infotainment system and say like, save last driving mode or something.
Yeah.
That maybe that the standard would be like this, and then when you activate last driving mode feature, then you could activate it, you know.
But then again, who makes you eligible to activate that?
Because I bought the freaking car,
Because
right?
it's mine. We could probably
It's
do
mine.
like a video ID thing, and then we could preset it. Maybe.
Yeah, so guys, if you share my view that you should be able to activate that last driving mode setting, put it in the comments, then Jörg will read these comments and then get back.
We will consider.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, that this happened, you know, a lot of times when we had some prototype drives, and also because we have so many existing customers of, for example, predecessor generations. In this case, of course not, but of course, always great to read the customer comments, and then you know these guys can also take a lot of experience from that actually. So, what would you say? I mean, you're head of this project. The one thing that you say that absolutely stands out with this vehicle, if you have to put one thing.
If it's only one thing, it's the efficiency. I really love how efficient we use the energy we have on board with the battery, and that you really get long ranges in everyday driving, whether it's cold or warm, and whether you are going faster or slower. Range is always really on a very high level and very close to the certification values, which is important for us. So we don't have too much of a gap between what is a certification value and what the average user will what he can expect while driving. So that's probably the biggest pro, and if the second biggest one for me is the rear axle steering. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, rear axle steering, especially when you drive slower, it makes the car so much more agile. It kind of takes a short wheelbase. It feels kind of unreal almost. What's the threshold when it changes from you know, going in the opposite direction than the front wheels to parallel direction? What's the speed threshold?
Honestly, I don't want to put out a wrong number now. I would have to look it up.
Yeah, but I think it also yeah, it sometimes depends also on the
setting
version and so on. Yeah.
I have to go slow here. There's a radar trap.
Yeah. The car should tell us that, right?
We can
but
wave.
it's not allowed in Germany to have these information.
Nope.
But
you're allowed to know where it is if you drive by twice a day.
Yeah, it's really nice acceleration, but smooth at the same time. Yeah. I do prefer the rear-wheel drive versions, by the way, because when you get out of the corner, you just come around with the rear. Yeah, it's pretty.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah,
and
we can test the different sound experiences, by the way. So settings, then we have here vehicle, sound experience on. There we go. So, and then yeah, we start by roaring pulse. It's more like a low frequency sound, where you can see about that. You heard that? Like more like. And we can try vivid flux. It's more like, Star Trek Engage, like, and then we have silver waves, which have more high frequency. barely notable here.
Yeah.
But I think Silver Waves is a little bit more audible when you're at slower speeds. I
At
think,
slower
yeah.
speeds and also in recuperation.
Yeah. But for example, here I think it's good that you can use it and you have a choice.
Exactly.
But you can also deactivate it when you say like, that's just, I want to show off to my friends once, but then that's it, and then I want to have it deactivated or something. So this is actually a good choice. You're not end up with a setting you don't want,
And I think that's really important because, for example, many people are somewhat annoyed by noises, and the big benefit of an electric car is the quietness and how smooth everything is. So to give the option to just keep it that way and leave it like that we think it's important.
Yeah, or the ambient line, we have this energy shine setting where now it's a little bit bright outside because, but we see here it changes then depending on if Jörg is pressing the go pedal, we sometimes call it now. We had the discussion, do we still call it accelerator or throttle? Is that because it's not a throttle like technically, So we just name it pedal or go pedal or accelerator pedal would also work, right? Yeah. Or how do you call it internally, or do you say internally stay like we are Germans, we are engine builders, we call it throttle, that's it?
We still call it the accelerator pedal because that's kind of the function it employs. That's what it technically is.
Yeah.
There is no throttle cable linkage anymore.
I mean, you are using so many marketing words for so many different functions, and 4matic plus whatever. You could also say like, this is our EQ power pedal or something, right? Maybe this is to come very soon.
Maybe we can put it in the comments if someone has a good idea how to name the thing.
When in the future every manufacturer will call their pedal in a different way, then also with the ambient lighting, of course, you do not have to use that. This, I always call it circus mode. It's interesting and also good for showing off to your friends, but probably when you drive every day, then the mono color will maybe do, just a little bit less distraction for that. Well, do you like that one, or do you rather want?
Well, I rather have it kind of bluer tones and single tone. I have 3 daughters. They like it more colorful. Let's put it that way. Well, here's a nice roundabout where we can experience the rear axle steering, and it just feels amazing. And we could do much tighter turns even. Well,
if you have the 10 degrees rear axle steering, do you know by heart how much it reduces the turning circle?
Almost 2 meters.
2 meters reduction.
So it's from 12.7 meters without rear axle steering. It reduces down to 10.7. So it's almost 2 meters reduction in turning circle, which is a lot if you're maneuvering.
And since the EQS also has the rear axle steering, do they differ much then? Or is it like, has the EQE even more narrow turning circle? Is it much different?
It's still a little smaller because still the length, the overhangs and the wheelbase, they both contribute, and therefore it's still a little larger on the EQS.
So what I feel from my passenger experience so far is all the features that make the EQS special, like good noise insulation and this spontaneous ride, also the air suspension and so on, you all get that. But I feel that with the shorter wheelbase, the car feels sportier, it feels more agile. I can already feel that it's more driving fun.
Yes,
it feels like, I mean, the weight difference is not really present, right? You say like weight difference is not the thing, but it still feels lighter because of that shorter wheelbase. Then of course the rear axle steering as well. So if driving fun is a thing for you, then the EQE will help, and also of course is less expensive. The seats, of course, when you have this optional very plush setting in the EQS, they are softer in a way, but I feel that they do not offer so much more comfort, because I feel that you're almost getting blown out of the seat, because it's so uber plush. So I feel I like to be a little bit more connected to the seat, in a way. Next video is the EQS now in the autoplay. That's of course recommended. So when you guys drive in the EQE in the future, then you have Autogefuehl channel running all the time. That's of course good. Yeah, this is a good way to compare then, you know. So we can watch the EQS video while driving the EQE and then have a comparison of that. So I guess if money doesn't play a role, and you could buy a vehicle for yourself, would you pick the EQS or the EQE?
Well, for me, as I like the more compact behavior, I think it would be the EQE. I also like the conventional, the conventional trunk. In terms of driver comfort, nothing beats the S-Class ambience that you have in the EQS. But again, also with conventional cars, I would consider myself more an E-Class guy than S-Class guy.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, especially we car enthusiasts who really like to drive ourselves. Yeah, acceleration out of the corner, this is really interesting. Maybe in sport mode, maybe. We can go in sport mode, then you have even more boost. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, sport mode. Do we have more power now?
No, let's see.
Woo! Nice. Yeah, a little bit, you know, moving rear. Very cool. Sport mode.
It doesn't prohibit having fun.
Yeah. But when you accelerate in combat mode or accelerate in sport mode, do we have more power?
We have a different, let's say, torque to RPM graph that we follow when ramping up the E motor. So there's a little difference there. But the max power is the same.
Ah, okay. So,
but we want to give a different feel. So we change the way how we get from minimum power to maximum power.
So here, basically, the maximum power is reached earlier than in sport mode.
Well, in terms, especially if you start the acceleration, you get more torque and a quicker ramp up. Therefore. So,
okay. Yeah. Because that's all software anyway. Because the electric motor, it could deliver 100% torque all time, right?
All times, right. But you have to kind of somewhat adjust that to what your accelerator pedal is kind of giving.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll turn around here and demonstrate our minimum turning circle here. So we'll just turn right here, about like that.
Well,
isn't that impressive?
That's like with a VW Polo or something.
Yeah, with like a go-kart.
Yeah, I mean, the turning circle is one of a compact or even small car.
10.7 meters is really short.
Yeah.
That's really small.
Yeah, I think a VW Up or something has 10 meters. And then 11 is, I think, a Polo, something like this. Yeah, it should be something like this. Yeah, it's really impressive indeed.
And especially if you're maneuvering in the city and, let's say, have tight corners to cut, it's really great. Feels good.
Yeah.
And it's the first time you're really surprised, because you wouldn't expect it to be enough room to turn, actually.
You talked about the efficiency. So we have this smaller battery here now, unlike the top battery in the EQS. So we are 108 kilowatt hours versus 91 kilowatt hours net. The smaller one is also available in the EQS. This kind of loss in kilowatt hours, you know, does it make a huge difference range-wise?
Well, in fact, let's start with the efficiency contributor. So with a car, when you're moving fast, it's certainly the aerodynamics. The EQS is really the best car we have, with a drag coefficient of 0.2. We have all the features that made that really champion value also incorporated in this car, but because it's a little shorter, physics, you can't betray them, it's going to be a little less good than in the EQS, but also a great value. That's
a very interesting fact, you know, because you might think, oh, the smaller the car, the more efficient. But when it's about wind efficiency, longer is better.
Longer is better. But the cross section is also important, and that's again where the cars are very similar. So you are losing a little bit on the length, although the drag coefficient itself is very comparable. So that's one thing. The electric motors, the electric system, as we already said, is exactly the same. So, and the weight again also comparable. So this, let's say, reduced energy content that we have in the battery also almost linearly translates into less range. So that's almost a linear ratio. We have 780 with the EQS in the WLTP, and this one's going to top out around 650.
Okay, these are the official figures.
Yes.
I mean, we can talk about our test with the EQS with the bigger battery. And in summertime, we ended up some 600 plus kilometers or 400 something miles. That was possible in very good conditions. But we have a catch here with the EQS and the EQE. It does not have a heat pump.
That's true.
And I really wonder about that because I did a winter test now in the EQS and the range was almost cut in half. And I did not really know. It was driving rather slowly and I had hit more like 220 miles or 350 kilometers. So consumption of about 33 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. So what are you going to do about this?
Well, I have a little different experience, especially with the EQS. I drove shortly before Christmas, and I drove more than 500 kilometers. And I had my daughters were trying and employing every mode that the car had, and seat heaters everywhere. And so I would say we used quite some energy, not for driving. But again, the range was,
I wasn't even watching YouTube.
3 to 5 degrees, so maybe a little warmer than what you used or experienced. And I was not disappointed. And we had a consumption on one way of 22 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And I was floating in traffic, let's say 120 on highways, autobahns. And on the way back, I drove faster, more 160. And then the consumption went up to 26, or roughly 26 kilowatt hours.
So you're not using the heat pump because you say we don't need it?
At the moment, we don't need it. Yeah. And we are looking into options to improve, of course, because as I said, efficiency is king, especially for electric vehicles. So we are not going to stop development. That's for sure.
I mean, from my experience, I would strongly recommend a heat pump. Could you implement this like space-wise? Is there some spot left in the car where you could say like, yeah, we might be able to do that?
Everything's possible.
Everything's possible, he says. Okay, so EQE or EQS facelift? I'm pretty sure there will be a heat pump. I'm pretty sure about this.
Not only. we are working on cars, and I think with the EQXX, that was a good indicator in where the technology is going and what the direction is going to be. And when it comes to drivetrain efficiency, that's it.
Is there anything I can do right now to increase winter range? I've read one of our viewers, EQS customer. He says he puts it in the AC setting Eco Plus, and then he could save like massive amounts of range in wintertime with the cost of being a little bit cold for the first 15 minutes.
And that's a big contribution. And especially if you are driving in conditions where you are not using a lot of power for driving, the higher the share of the energy you use for heating.
So that's here, like this eco setting here.
That's
the
actually
Comfort,
a big difference.
Eco. Like, what's the exact difference between Comfort Eco and Eco Plus? Is it more just like cold and colder?
It reduces temperature, lower speeds, so maybe it cuts down earlier. Let's say differentiates in the distribution of the air. So multiple measures, because heating, as with your house in winter, heating is the main driver for energy consumption.
I mean, I rather said, okay, it's a very interesting approach, but when I buy the electric S-Class and including options for 180,000 euros, I don't want to wear my jacket in the car for the first 20-15 minutes. That's what I was thinking, although efficiency is always good. But I mean,
that's our opinion as well, and that's why we don't enforce that on the customers and drivers. But it's a choice. You can choose to lower, let's say, the thermal comfort if you want to increase range. You can choose to do that.
So when I set it here to Eco Plus now, how much longer would it take for the car to warm up actually?
Well, there are many factors that go in there, but
just like approximately.
I'd say 10 minutes maybe.
10 minutes.
It's really guess. I don't have a number in terms of under which testing conditions we have how many minutes less, but we measure the temperature for your feet and for your headroom because that's different as well, and how do you distribute between front and rear. So there are many factors that contribute to that.
So maybe you discuss it then with your wife, saying like, sorry honey, you have to be cold for 10 minutes and then it will get cozy because range, you know.
Well, let's say if we are running short to reach the next charging point, then I would maybe discuss it. Otherwise, I'd rather charge. I'd charge. Because we can charge so fast now. You have 170 kilowatts charging power.
That worked very well in the EQS.
It works well. Really
we had
well.
like in about 30 minutes, we charged over 80 kilowatt hours.
Yes.
That's I haven't seen that yet actually.
Because
it's the same here, right? In
It
EQE?
sustains the high charging current, and that's key to get a lot of energy into the car in a short period of time.
Is it the same here with a smaller battery?
It's a little less
Little, yeah.
because the energy needs to be distributed over the different cells of the battery.
But the max peak is less.
It's 170 kilowatts, the peak.
Okay, but I mean.
But then it will probably go more than towards 150 or something like that. Yeah.
So it won't make the biggest difference in charging then probably because, I mean, we were starting at I think 188, and then it dropped down to slowly 170, 160
Something like that.
slowly.
You will see here, but with an offset of I don't know 10 or 20 kilowatts.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but in reality, that's still a lot of energy in a short period of time. And if you plug in your car and you just walk off to get a coffee and you're coming back, you're probably most likely already done.
Last comment here to the seating comfort. Actually, these are it's an AMG-Line. We see also here the red console stitches. So these here are the sportier seats we're on here right now, right?
To look at headrest, yes.
Yeah. So like the base seat will be, you know, with a separate head restraint then, and a little bit softer as for the cushion as well.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this one here, I mean, it's already quite soft. But if you want it a little bit softer, then you would rather not go for the AMG-Line and stay with a base, you know, softer seat. Learned a lot about the EQE in driving now. We also have already the complete episode where we have it in the studio with all the exterior and interior details. And of course, if you want to compare the Mercedes EQS, a lot of the comparisons we've been talking about, if you want to see where that came from, check out this episode, and thank you so much for the ride.
Thank you.